All right, welcome back to ABA exam review. Today we are continuing our fourth BCBA practice exam, where we're going through the questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. If you're looking for our study material, check out behavioranalyststudy.com. Questions, comments, let us know. When you pass, let us know so we can include you in our Sunday shout-out videos. Other than that, let's work hard, study hard, get to our questions. 141. You are a behavior analyst working with children who exhibit severe aggression. One client in particular has made no progress in 5 months and is now starting to aggress towards strangers. What is the best thing to do next? One of the hardest things behavior analysts struggle with is when do we transfer cases? When do we get rid of cases? When do we refer cases out? And in the ethical code, they clearly outline several reasons that give you either the right or open the door for getting rid of a client or referring a client. In this case, you are working with this child, right? Or who is exhibiting these severe aggression behaviors. They've made no progress in 5 months, which is a long, long time. And now it's getting worse, right? They're starting to aggress towards strangers. So as a behavior analyst, pride and ego aside, you've got to make the right decision for this child. Your competencies and your capabilities might not match what this client needs. No progress, now getting worse. It's been 5 months. What do we do next? A, reconduct a full functional behavior assessment and seek additional training. Well, it might be too late for that, right? You've already gone 5 months. Hopefully, you've already done another behavior assessment within that 5 months. Additional training could take who knows how long. And we're already to the point where it's getting worse. A is just too slow. It's not what we need to help this client. B, recommend to the parents that they seek out a medicine-based treatment. We are not physicians. We're not pharmacists. We're not psychiatrists. We can't recommend medicine because we're not trained in recommending medicine. So B is not within our scope. C, refer the client out to a practitioner who is better equipped to handle aggression. This is the best option, right? And while it can be a little deflating, thinking or knowing that you can't handle a certain case, remember, our priority is the client. And if we can't help the client, we need to find someone or at least attempt to help them find someone who can. So in this case, you're going to refer the client out to a practitioner who is better equipped to handle aggression. It isn't D, all the above, because you're not going to seek out medicine-based treatment. And within 5 months, I would have hoped we've already done a new behavior assessment and we've tried to get training. C is kind of our last resort, right? We've exhausted everything else. Too much time has passed. Now, to meet the client's best needs, we have to refer them out. 142. If you are working with a child who is nonverbal and non-vocal, what will be the first step in teaching them to say, Mom? Okay, the important thing here is the distinction between nonverbal and non-vocal, because there is a difference, right? Verbal behavior doesn't just necessarily mean spoken word, right? Non-vocal, however, is referring to sounds from your mouth. Okay, so you need to understand the difference between those two. When we talk about verbal behavior, we're not just talking about spoken word. Okay, now in this case, we've got a client who doesn't communicate verbally and also has no sound, right? They're non-vocal as well. So we need to teach them to say Mom. What is going to be the first step in saying Mom? A, reinforce any vocal sound made by the client. Good. We're going to be using shaping, okay? And since this client has no sound, we can't expect them to start producing the desired sound immediately. What we need to do is first teach them or reinforce them for any sound they make, right? When we're shaping, we're reinforcing approximations. And when we're at this level, where they almost have no skill and really have none of the skill at all, we need to start at the very, very bottom, the very, very basic. So any vocal sound that client makes, we're going to reinforce. B, reinforce when the client makes the M sound. Well, currently the client makes no sound. So if the first sound they make is that would be amazing for us, but we can't expect that. B is setting our expectations and their expectations too high. C, reinforce when the client makes the M sound in the presence of their mom. Again, we're pushing that even further. This client is nonverbal and non-vocal. We just need sounds. We need that very basic behavior first, right? Approximation. That first approximation is what we're looking for. And then D, you cannot shape this behavior for this child. Sometimes it's assumed that, well, this client is nonverbal and nonvocal. We can't shape their behavior. That's just not true. We know better, right? If this client, nonverbal, doesn't communicate, and nonvocal, doesn't make sounds, but we want to teach them to say something, we need to start at the basic. And the basic is going to be any vocal sound made by the client is going to receive reinforcement. You are observing another behavior analyst as part of a training program your company just implemented. You hear this behavior analyst explain to a stakeholder that they will be withholding tangible items when the client screams as part of an extinction procedure. They say this should be done in all environments and that the client should not be aware that extinction is occurring. Is this explanation correct? All right, you've got to analyze this situation. So become the behavior analyst and think, what is occurring here, right? You're observing a behavior analyst. They are explaining that they're going to withhold items when the client screams as part of extinction. Seems okay. They say this should be done in all environments. Good. Remember, extinction needs to happen as close to 100% of the time as possible across all environments. And then they say the client should not be aware that extinction is occurring. Now, is that true or is that false? Well, that's false. If we're going to properly implement an extinction procedure, we should go ahead and tell the client that their behavior is on extinction. So, is the explanation correct? A, yes, the analyst described extinction properly. Well, up to a point, right? Until they said the client should not be aware that extinction is occurring. It's actually the opposite. B, no, extinction should happen in the primary environment only. Well, we know that's not true. If we're going to implement extinction, let's say in the clinic, and that client goes to school, we need to collaborate with the school. So extinction is happening in the clinic and at school and then at home. It needs to happen everywhere. C, no, the client should be told about extinction. Yes, we want to tell the client that extinction is occurring. And then D, no, the withholding procedure is incorrect. Well, not necessarily. We don't know a lot about the behavior, but if they're withholding tangible items when the client screams, seems like a basic extinction procedure based on our information. So the problem is they said the client should not be aware that extinction is occurring, when in fact, we should tell the client about extinction. So is it correct? Well, no, the client should be told about extinction. You ask a client to grab the green teddy bear for you. The client walks over and throws the green teddy bear against the wall. What skills most likely need to be addressed? Let's think about this. You have a client and you ask them to grab the green teddy bear. They walk over and they get the green teddy bear, but they throw it against the wall. So what's gone wrong here? Now, before we get to the answer choices, try to predict what's gone wrong. Did they discriminate? They did. You said green teddy bear. They found the green teddy bear. Did they differentiate? Well, not necessarily. You said grab the green teddy bear. They threw the green teddy bear. So maybe they grabbed it, but then they threw it additionally, right? So their listening behavior is also not on point. So what skill most likely needs to be addressed? Well, based on our prediction, yes, they grabbed it, but then they threw it. So I would say differentiation or listener behavior. Let's see what we can find. A, differentiation. Sure, response differentiation, right? We said grab it, they threw it. Okay, maybe we just need to work a little bit on shaping up those responses. Remember, response differentiation and differentiation, same thing. What about discrimination? Well, they discriminated. You say green teddy bear, they had green teddy bear. Discrimination involves our stimuli. Differentiation involves our responses. Remember that. Aggression reduction. That's not really a skill, right? We're not really defining aggression. We're not sure what aggression is. C is just not very relevant here. And then D, functional communication. Are we asking them to communicate anything? No, this is a receptive instruction. It's listener behavior. And since receptive instructions and listener behaviors are not an option, the next best answer is going to be response differentiation. We need to change what response they choose or what response is evoked in relation to being asked to grab the green teddy bear. So while you could argue maybe they did grab it and throw it, the best answer is going to be differentiation because it's not the response we were looking for. So what skill most likely needs to be addressed? A, differentiation. One day, you're reading through the Journal of Applied Behavior Analysis when you notice that your data is present in one of the published studies. You're not mentioned anywhere and no citation is given. The study is a major study in the field of applied behavior analysis. How should you proceed? So, research ethics, you have to know it. Even if you don't conduct research, you have to know it for the exam. And this has to do with plagiarism. Remember, we don't plagiarize ourselves. We don't plagiarize others. We don't plagiarize treatment plans. And we give credit. We give credit where credit is due. In this case, you're reading the journal and you see that your data is present, but you're not mentioned anywhere. That's a big problem. How do you proceed? A, let it pass since the study has major implications for the field. Well, that's an even bigger reason to get credit. Okay, even if, let's say, you worked, this is your supervisor who published this paper, doesn't give them the right to steal your work and not give you credit. B, reach out to the author and attempt to clear up the situation. Good. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they didn't mean to do it. The first step in ethical situations, unless someone is harmed, is to try to resolve it. All right, that's what is recommended. Any ethical situation, before reaching out to the board or, in this case, the journal, always try to resolve it amicably first. So the first thing you're going to want to do is just reach out and ask what happened and ask the author. C, report the author to the journal. Well, if B, you can't clear it up, then you move to C. C would come after reaching out to the author. As would D, report the author to the BACB. If you reach out, you explain the situation, and the author still refuses to give you credit, then you go to the journal, then you go to the BACB. But you always try to resolve these ethical scenarios amicably first. So how do you proceed in this case? Well, you're going to reach out to the author and attempt to clear up the situation. For the past 4 weeks, Henry has put his left shoe on first and then his right shoe on second while getting dressed in the morning. Since he started doing this, he received 2 promotions at work. Why might you doubt that these occurrences are related? This has to do with superstitious behavior. Superstitious behavior can be explained behaviorally. In this case, Henry puts his left shoe on first, right shoe on second, and now he's gotten these promotions. So all of a sudden, he's getting all these promotions because he put his left shoe on first and his right shoe on second. As a behavior analyst, what are you going to say to this? Why do you think these occurrences are not related? Why might you doubt there's any relation? A, it is not possible that a functional relation exists between the shoes and the promotions. Now, be careful here. It's highly unlikely, but saying something is not possible is too strong, right? Maybe there is a functional relation. You can't just say, well, it's just impossible. Okay, that doesn't describe it behaviorally. B, the temporal relation between putting shoes on and the promotion at work must be questioned. Yes, in the morning while getting dressed, he puts his shoes on. And then he has to drive to work. He has to meet with whoever he meets with. Hours pass between the events, right? In this case, maybe days have passed, okay? It's happened for 4 weeks. He's gotten 2 promotions. So he goes days without promotions. The temporal relation just doesn't seem to match up for a functional relation. Remember, temporal relation refers to when they occur in time, that closeness, okay? The closer 2 things occur to each other, the stronger that relationship is. In this case, you just have to ask, well, they happen so far apart. Is it really related? C, we must first get Henry to put his right shoe on first and left shoe on second to determine the functional relation. Well, not necessarily. You can doubt, right? You can exercise philosophical doubt without actually experimenting. And then D, 4 weeks is not long enough to indicate a functional relation. Well, sure it is, right? We're just going to question it because the relationship between the two seems so far apart that it's unlikely that they have effects on one another. So why might you doubt that these occurrences are related? Well, B, the temporal relation between putting shoes on and the promotion at work must be questioned. 147, you are working on 6-month reports for your clients when you start to notice a trend in the data for some of your technicians. Maladaptive behavior tends to trend upwards during and right after your supervision sessions, while break time tends to trend downwards. Given this information, what is the most likely and best explanation for this? Now, let's ask ourselves, what is the key here? All right, well, working on reports, noticing a trend, right? Okay, that's background, doesn't really affect it. What we see is maladaptive behavior is now trending upwards. And the important thing is it's happening during and right after your supervision. And then break time trends downwards. So During your supervision and right after, all of a sudden you're noticing these trends of behavior and break time. And what's changed? Well, your presence. So if your presence is affecting the data and affecting the behavior, what's the explanation for that? A, observer drift. Now, maybe observer drift, but it doesn't seem to be a measurement issue. We're not measuring the wrong thing. B, treatment drift. Maybe treatment changed when you're there, but it's hard to say. Maybe the client is reacting towards you, right? A technician could be, but maybe the client's reacting towards you. Maybe the technician is implementing everything still correctly, but when you're there, the client acts differently. And if that's the case, the likely explanation is reactivity. If things are changing because of your presence, then the people in the environment are reacting to you. This is reactivity. And we would never attribute D, random chance. So, given this information, what is most likely and best explanation for this? Well, reactivity. Prior to Christmas break, several of your students no longer requested to play with Legos as part of their break time. After 2 weeks of vacation, all of your students started to request Legos for break once again. What most likely occurred during vacation? Pretty easy question, kind of a motivating operation question. We know prior to Christmas break, several of the students stopped requesting to play with Legos. What do we think happened? Well, they probably got satiated. If they, for a long time, asked for Legos, got Legos, and then they stopped, satiation is likely to have occurred. So after 2 weeks of vacation, they now start to request Legos once again. So what happened on vacation? They were deprived. So the question is asking about vacation. What occurred during vacation? A, satiation. Satiation happened prior to vacation, right? Because students no longer requested to play with Legos before Christmas break. But on vacation, they were deprived. So when they got back, the value went up and they started to ask for Legos again. Reinforcement and punishment cannot be determined. We're not sure what happened on their break. We're not sure about their behavior. What we are pretty sure of, though, is they were satiated. They went on vacation. They were then deprived. When they got back, value was increased. So what most likely occurred during vacation? Well, deprivation of the Legos. What should you consider first when starting man training with a client who possesses a full vocabulary? All right, let's think about this. We're man training. We are trying to get our client to make a request. More importantly, a man is evoked by a motivating operation. So we possess a full vocabulary. What are we going to consider first when man training? A, what items is the client able to label? Now, that might be important for tacting, but for man training, that's not really relevant, right? Because even if they can label some items, the motivation might not be there. So they might not even want to request those items. B, can the client repeat request? Obviously, that's going to be more important for a COIC. C, what items possess strong MOs for the client? Good. If we know the teddy bear, the fire truck, and the Legos possess strong motivating operations for the client, then we might want to start our man training with those 3 items. We're going to try to determine what motivates the client. What does the client want? That's really what a man is. What do you want? You need to tell me what you want. I'm man training. D, can the client answer the question, what do you want? Well, D is more of an interverbal. If they're answering a question, that's going to be an interverbal. We're worried about man training. We need to figure out what are some highly motivating stimuli that we can start to get them to ask for. So what do we consider first when man training with a client who possesses a full vocabulary? Well, what items possess strong MOs for the client? 150, a client during a 2-minute observation engaged in escape 2 seconds after a question was asked. The client then engaged in escape 5 seconds after an instruction was given. The client then engaged in escape 3 seconds after they were offered some water. What is being measured? So think about what we're measuring here. When are we timing, right? When is our timing occurring? Well, we say they engage in escape after a question. They engage in escape after an instruction. They engage in escape after offering some water. So we have an SD followed by a response. And we're timing the time in between the SD and the response. And the time between the SD and the response is what? A, rate. Are we measuring frequency here? Well, not necessarily. Okay, we're not looking at one single thing. We're not counting one single behavior. We're measuring time in between. So B, duration, is also out because we're not measuring the whole duration of one response. We're measuring time in between SDs and responses. Inter-response time. Now, if we were measuring the time in between escape, that will be inter-response time, but we're not. Each individual response is separate, and we're measuring the time from the SD. The question, the instruction, offering some water are SDs, and then our times are our latency. So what is being measured here? Latency. All right, thank you for watching. Check out behavioranalyststudy.com for 3 practice exams, our task list study guide, and of course, our famous combo pack. Let us know when you pass so we can include you in our Sunday shout out. As always, work hard, study hard. See you soon.